Today I'm going to show you how to draw a glass on black construction paper with white colored pencil. So this is a lesson that I do with my high school art students, but before we dive into this, we've already practiced a little bit of shading. So we kind of worked our way up to this. So prior to this lesson, we've already done a little bit of line drawing. So we've learned how to grid an image or scale an image up using an Xgrid. We have learned how to shade on white paper with graphite, either through the candle lesson, which I will link below. But before that, we even did some smaller shapes, learning how to shade with graphite.
That's kind of small.
So prior to this also, students have completed a very simple shape where they didn't have to worry about the complexities of the reflections and so much about getting the scale and proportion and shape of everything right. So we did this galaxy lesson, which I showed you how to do last week. So you can find that linked below or on my channel as well. But we start with the galaxy because it's very, very simple. And the only thing that students have to be concerned about is learning proper technique, really learning how to build up their values and not having to worry about the scale and making sure everything is lined up right like they do in this particular drawing. So the glass drawing is a little bit more complex. I would definitely make sure you or your students have practiced and kind of have a little bit of experience with shading and a little bit of experience with knowing what to look for before you dive into this. It's always a good idea to break things down into smaller steps. But this project is a really great Art 2 project or Art 3 project. I might do this with some of my kind of advanced, interested level 1 students, but it's a great follow-up to any shading unit. So let's get started. So to get started, we are going to map out all of our brightest highlights. So I'm looking really, really close at the reference photo here, and this video is really sped up, but you can see that I'm really looking very closely and I'm finding those bigger shapes. So those bigger, brighter shapes, and I'm bouncing around the drawing. I'm not getting caught up in one area. It's really tempting to want to get your drawing to look great immediately, or at least get like a portion of your drawing to look great immediately, and to hone in on certain little fine-tuning details. But you want to resist that urge. If you can get all the bigger shapes in first and kind of leave some areas unfinished as you move throughout your drawing, when you go back to them and you go back to tweak them, you'll have a lot more to reference or compare your shapes in your drawing to, because you can compare parts of your drawing to each other. So notice this drawing does not look fabulous at this stage. It's a little sketchy. There's a lot of unfinished areas. There's no one section that's really, really detailed. I'm still looking at and comparing where everything is. I'm not just looking at how bright it is or how the value fades. I'm really still concerned that all of my shapes are accurate and in the right spot. And you can see I'm going back a little bit with my eraser, and I'm not pressing hard. I'm keeping everything much lighter than it really is. So I haven't built up any of those bright highlights yet. I'm still kind of mapping them in very lightly. So once I'm sure that everything is where it's supposed to be, now I'm going in and in lots of layers, I'm starting to build up some of those brighter whites, but I'm not getting caught up in the tiny details, bouncing around the drawing and getting the larger shapes as opposed to the details. So now I'm starting to refine a little bit more. Now I'm really starting to look at how bright things are. So the trick to getting these highlights is to keep your points super sharp and work in layers. So first I'm getting a really actually darker value because I'm not pushing hard. We're building up our lights. I'm putting it in very lightly with light pressure, and then I'm layering over it multiple times to build up these brighter areas. And as I go through the drawing, I am still always checking to double check, triple check, make sure that everything is still in the right spot. So even though you may be like super sure, it's so easy to get caught up in one area and kind of forget or like lose your place a little bit. Okay, so here we go. I am just building up these highlights. So all of these reference images, I have this slideshow, instructional slideshow, I have more in-depth video demonstrations, rubric, etc. This lesson you can find in my Teacher Pay Teacher shop, or you can also find it on my website at insideoutartteacher.com. Or you can use any reference photo you find. But if you want to save time and save the hassle of the gridding and finding that perfect image and measuring out the dimensions of your paper, etc., the work is all done for you.
Wow.
So I hope you and or your students enjoy this lesson and have fun.